Good evening and welcome to the September 9th Board of Selectmen meeting. My name is Gary Daniels, I'm Chair of the Board. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce the Board to you. From your left, we have Selectman Chris Labonte, our Vice Chair Paul Dargy, Town Administrator Mark Bender, Selectman Laura Duziak, and Selectman Michael Putnam. I would now invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We thank you for being with us this evening, and for those tuning in at home, we thank you for tuning in. For those that are with us physically tonight, you have microphones on your left and your right. If you wish to speak during the course of the meeting, please use a microphone. Speak clearly, state your name so that we can get it correctly in the recording. First order of business this meeting is with our Assessor, Marty Noel.
And good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So, we have a few orders of business here to take care of. First of all, we have land use change tax. We have 2 more residential parcels coming out of current use for construction of new homes. So both of these have been, the owners have been notified. The land use change tax is based on 10% of market value. And those are before you tonight for signature.
Any questions for Marty? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the approval of
I move that we approve the
land?
2 land use change tax documents.
Second.
Motion by Selectman Dargy, second by Selectman Duziak. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, and then we're moving on to the MS1 report, and along with that, maybe a discussion of the revaluation briefly. So the MS1 report, as you all know, is known as the summary inventory of value. We report to the Department of Revenue the values each year as of April 1st. And this year, as is each year, we have the town totals and a breakout section that is just the village section. For that, it's just the one signature for both sections. The village section is broken out, but it's included in our town values. So, statutory due date for that is September 1st each year. We had requested to have an extension through September 30th, just so that we would have time to get the the revaluation completed and have all our values to report. We're a little bit ahead of the game on that, so I'm hoping that it'll be signed tonight and submitted to the Department of Revenue as one of the factors that they consider when determining the tax rate for the year.
And they determine that tax rate when?
Oh, hopefully mid-October, just before the tax bills go out. I know that they have a few things they're still waiting on. State doesn't have a budget yet, and yeah. And of course, the information from the town and from the schools. So there's quite a few things that they look at before they determine the tax rate, aside from the values. So.
Make a motion, we approve the MS1 as it's presented.
Motion by Selectman Putnam to approve the MS1. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Duziak. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Okay, so you've obviously had a chance to look at it. I'd like to just go over a little bit of the summary of some of the highlights on the MS1. Our net valuation increase over 2018 was calculated to be 15.6%. For a total gross valuation of $1,610,000,000 and change. We have reductions for certain credits and exemptions totaling $9,400,000, a lot of numbers there, and for a net valuation of $1,600,000 and a little more. Total residential property values have increased 19.4%. That's what I was telling people, just about 20% was the median increase. Approximately 1.5% of that is attributable to growth, which we would see from year to year just due to new construction, and that was primarily as single-family homes as well. A little bit of breakdown on some of the changes. Mobile homes had an increase of 23.8%. It's a little bit of a surprise, and it seems counterintuitive until you realize that mobile homes do represent the lower end of the market, and as the market rises, they become a much more viable option for purchase. So we did see a big increase in that. Single-family homes, we saw an average increase of 18.5%, condos 15.4%, and residential apartments at 12.9%.
Now, when these were assessed, you didn't assess every home, is that correct?
We did not visit every home, we did not do a site visit to every home, but yes, we have assessed every residential property.
Okay.
We have done it through statistical analysis.
But just for those people who said, well, nobody came out to my house.
Oh my gosh, we've been to homes, and some of the homes now I am actually showing a visit 5 or 6 times to measure and list the home. So it's not that we haven't been to the home, we might not have been to that home this year, but we have certainly been to every home in Milford over the course of multiple years. When I do go to the home, I do leave a notice on the door so people know that I've been there. And they always have the option to call me and make sure that the data is good. I encourage people to call me to make sure that their data is good, so that they are being taxed fairly on what it consists their property.
Okay.
Okay. So year over year, change for commercial properties was 0.69%. We do have a lot of projects that are going on, but we also have a lot of exemptions that have been applied to these projects, so we will see that growth more slowly over the next 3 to 5 years. Hitchener, for one, comes to mind, and then a couple of smaller projects around town as well. Residential property values represent about 82% of our property base, where commercial property values represent about 16.6% of our commercial base. The rest is filled in by utilities and current use lands. And then by parcel count, the number of residential units represents 81.5% of the total properties, where the number of commercial units represents 7.9%, the remainder being filled in by utilities, current use lands, and the exempt properties when we're just doing counts. So in other analysis, we have exemptions and credits. For 2019, we have 86 elderly exemption recipients. That is down from 94 of 2018. Those changes occur from year to year. It's not out of line. And the number of veterans tax credits total is up slightly to 526 for 2019 from 520 for 2018. We saw minor increases in the blind and solar exemptions as well. So where the first couple of years we had the solar exemption, we had a lot of properties that applied for it. That seems to have slowed down some over the course of this year. So a brief discussion about the 2019 residential update. We look at value divergence every year when we look at our sales analysis to make sure that there is equity across the board for residential and commercial properties. You may recall last year we were talking about residential properties having a more significant increase than commercial properties, so that they were slipping to over 20% difference between our residential market and our commercial market. Something needed to be done. So that's why we did the residential update. A lot of people were wondering why values increased overnight. Well, of course, they didn't increase overnight. The last time we increased values was for the 2016 revaluation. So it's been 3 years since we've had a value change in our assessments, and that's all we were doing was catching up with that. If we'd left the divergence to stand, we could certainly have seen many commercial and industrial abatements and appeals. Those are very unpredictable. They're, very large rebates for taxes when they're warranted, and with a divergence showing in the equalization ratio, certainly there would have been the possibility of that happening.
Do we still have a reevaluation in 2021, or is this the next one 5 years from this year?
So because this was a partial, we are still slated for a reevaluation in 2021. The board certainly has the option to decide to move that revaluation up to 2020 if there is the concern that, perhaps we want to look more closely into the different components of the commercial market. And that would be up to the board. I would be looking for direction this evening or within the next few weeks from that board to determine that so that I can budget accordingly. If we do that, then it would reset the clock so that it would be another 5 years before a full revaluation again. So then it would be 2025 instead of 2026.
I think one of the things we have to be concerned about, if I'm not mistaken, that we've been taking 15,000 a year
Correct.
and putting it into a capital reserve for assessment. If we're using these in the interim, in between the 5 years, how much have we got left in that account? If we were to do something next year, and then wouldn't we have to ask the taxpayers for a much larger amount?
Correct.
21.
Yes. So I believe we have 45,000 set aside already towards that. So it would be whatever the balance. And I'm estimating, I think we need to be on the conservative side. I'm estimating $90,000 for a total revaluation amount. It could come in less, but I don't want to be shortchanged on that. So yes, the balance of $45,000 would need to be budgeted for that. If we waited the extra year, then we would have $60,000 and need only the $30,000 to budget. So that does certainly weigh in as a factor.
So with using the 90,000 figure, that's different than the 75 we've been using for the past few years.
I think we slated 75 with the anticipation of using the final year another $15,000. So 90,000. Yeah. Yeah, but we have been gearing towards $75,000 to have that.
And Gary?
Yes.
I personally would be in favor of moving it up a year. My guess is that the residential apartments are way undervalued today, and I would like to see that analyzed sooner to bring them in line. That's just a guess.
That certainly is a possibility. I have looked at those apartments inside out and upside down. We have 3 categories of apartments. We have the large apartment buildings, the 8 to 11 units. Then we have the over 11 units that are consisting of complexes where the buildings are 4 units or less, and then apartment complexes where the buildings typically consist of apartments 4 units or more, or 5 units or more. So that is the breakdown of them. We did catch everything that was residential, which is apartments 4 units or less per building, and the 8 to 11 units. So we have captured most of those. There are 8 large projects that were not adjusted this year. It is possible that there is some variation. I did take a look at things as far as a per unit valuation. They're all on par. There isn't anything that really stands out that one category is significantly lower or higher than the other category. They all fall in line. They fall in line with the sales that we have, which are very few, but they do fall in line with the sales that we have. I did another pretty quick analysis for those that are rated commercially, the 1120s. Since 2011, they have increased 18 to 20%, which was our prior revaluation. And the 1111s, which are the residentially rated ones, have increased 30%. But if we go back to the prior revaluation of 2005, the commercially valued properties increased 60%, and the residentially valued properties increased 48%. So I think there's some parity. I think they change value over time at a different rate, but I think we certainly are keeping up with that.
It just seems that rents for apartments have been going up at a pretty high rate, and the value of a building relates pretty closely to the rents that the building generates.
Yep, rents versus expenses, income versus expenses, that's true, yep.
So it would make sense that they've gone up in value.
Yep, and when we look at commercial properties, we will be looking at a lot more than that. We are looking at all commercial properties, but certainly we would be considering storage units. Those are a rent per unit basis. We're looking at mobile homes, the parks, those are rent per unit basis as well. So there's, a bigger market that we'd be looking at than just those 8 apartment complexes when we do that.
But didn't you already look at mobile homes?
These are the mobile home parks, the park owners, so the rents for the land, that is commercial.
Okay.
So I'd suggest that we have 2 options when we do the budget, doing it in 20 and doing it in 21.
Yep.
And then we can decide later on which one we want to do. But, have a number available.
So there is a lot involved in that, sending out RFPs, getting those back, then sending out the income and expense statements and getting that information back and analyzing that, just so, we do have, the more time frame we have, and then, as far as a direction that you guys think you might want to go in, would be very helpful for me to get that ball rolling. Just,
Mr. Bennett?
Just to quantify the value of those apartment buildings that are considered commercial, the 1120 code.
Yeah.
The assessed valuation of those is right at $54 million. If you look at the total commercial and industrial valuation on the MS1, it's 201 million. So those residential apartments represent
A quarter.
about
Yeah.
24-25% of the total commercial value. If you look at that $54 million as a percentage of the total valuation, which is the number that's really going to move and have an
Yeah.
impact on the tax rate, it's 3%. So I think keeping that in perspective as we look at this. Our total larger apartment valuation is about $96 million. So the part that's considered residential makes up 44%. The part that's considered commercial represents 56%. And some of those are some of the newer apartment complexes also, which are
well, we only have the one, East Ridge,
East
as
Ridge,
newer.
yeah.
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 So I just thought you should
Yeah.
have that to keep it in perspective.
In terms of the options, I don't know if we have to have a really hardcore number. I mean, you're estimating $90,000 to do it. It sounds like you're trying to home in on a pretty close number, whether it's 86 or 99, 98 or something. I think a rough number that doesn't involve a lot of work to get a number would be adequate in terms of deciding what we want to do.
It wasn't the number that I was worried about as much as which year we're going to do it in, so that I could get the ball rolling. If we're going to do it next year, it's something we need to start working on early next year. And if it's going to be 2 years from now, then...
So if we're going to do it next year, you couldn't wait until March to start?
Well, I'd have to, because the funds would have to be budgeted by the town. I mean, it would be a warrant article, so I would have to. But if I knew that it was something going forward on the warrant article, I would be working towards it. That's all. That's just...
So let me make sure I understand it.
Yeah.
In 2020, minimally, we're going to have an increase in our capital reserve of $15,000.
That's the anticipation.
Right.
Yeah.
If we decide to expedite the reval, we would have an additional 30,000 to that.
Yeah.
So we would have to add an additional 30,000.
So 45,000 total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
45,000 total. Well, the 15 is going to be a capital reserve warrant.
Anyway.
I really think we should stick to the existing schedule. Matter of fact, I'll make that a motion that we stay with the 2021 revaluation date rather than moving it up. Because it was only 4 years ago they got their last evaluation. Let's give it another year, see where the market goes.
Okay. There is a motion. Is there a second to Selectman Putnam's motion?
Second.
A second by Selectman Duziak. We're still open for discussion now. I do have a question, because it seemed like a total reval was gonna cost $90,000. We've just done what you called a partial
Right.
reval. So why do we need another 90,000 to do something that isn't a whole?
When we send out an RFP, first of all, we will be looking at the entire universe of properties in Milford again.
So.
Because
so
we don't know what the value change is going to be from now till next year for residential properties. It may slow down, it may take off again in the spring. I don't know that. We do need to reexamine that.
But are you saying that you're going to be going back and reevaluating those that you just did?
We will be relooking at residential properties again in a full revaluation. Yes, that's required by the state. We can't take two partial updates and put them together to make a total revaluation. As much as that sounds like common sense, it's not within statute.
Trying to use too much common sense. Okay. Yes.
How much did our partial reevaluation cost us?
$20,000, and I think we had a very good price on that. Many of the quotes I was getting was closer to $40,000 just for that portion of it. So KRT worked very hard with me. I did a lot of work as well with them. So we were able to shave some money off that way.
Would it be, the potential be there that somebody, could KRT or whatever, could they, if they chose to bid on it, could they come in and do a total reeval? Are they a company that would do that?
You mean, yes, and could they consider the fact that they had just done a lot of the legwork already?
Correct.
Certainly they could.
Whether they would or not's a whole different story.
And
I mean,
any other bidder doesn't have that legwork behind them, so, yes.
So potentially we could come in on the lower side. I mean, it could be an option.
It could be, but until it goes out for RFP, I won't know. And until I know the direction the board wants to go, I mean, I can always send out an RFP and say, subject to town approval in January, and then find out in March whether to go ahead with it or not. But it would be premature to start that process this January if we're going to wait the 2 years. That's where I'm going with just wanting to know some direction. Okay.
Okay, further discussion, or did you have more you wanted to?
I think there was something on that was needed to be voted on before I
Well,
continued.
We're in the discussion mode, but.
Okay, well, further discussion for me would be talking about exemptions and credits and changes to those. Do you want to include that in this discussion?
I think I'd rather get all the information before we take a vote.
Okay. So earlier this year, as we were working through the elderly exemptions and approving those, there were a couple that came along that had been long-term recipients and had just gotten a little increase, a little bump in their Social Security, and were on the edge of, or falling off of the parameters that we have. So there'd be a couple of things. Certainly, because of the revaluation and the changes in values, many of our elderly are living in manufactured homes, so they are going to see some increase in their taxes, and we do want to cover that. So I am recommending that we take a look at the parameters for what the exemption amounts are. That I will be bringing something to you as soon as I know what the tax rate is and what that change has been for them.
Is it two parameters?
There are three.
Income and assets?
There are
and-
three parameters, yeah,
What's the third?
and exemption amounts,
Okay, right.
which is the one that I will be recommending change for. Income and assets, the income hasn't been changed since 2012. So that's something I may be recommending a little bit of a change to. And assets have not been changed since at least 15 years. I don't even know how far back that goes. That is $85,000. It's been a long time since that has changed. I'm going to do a study and take a look at what other towns are doing. I think we're towards the low end of mid-range, but I can do a more complete analysis for you if it's something you want to consider. And then the last thing I wanted to have considered is the veterans tax credit. That has been $300 for, I believe, over 10 years now as well. And that had been an attempt to change that to $400 in 2014. That did not pass on the town warrant articles, but but it may be time to reconsider that as well. So these are things that I will be bringing forward to you if you indicate that they're things I should be looking at.
Are any of those things dependent on whether we choose 2020 or 2021?
No.
Any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor to set the next revaluation for 2021. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Vote being 4-1 with Selectman Dargy opposed, the motion passes for 2021.
Just steady the course. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Good evening.
Thanks, Marty.
Oh, there was one other, yes, I'm so sorry. There was one other issue that has come up, and that was a postcard from the Department of Revenue. That went out to approximately 50 homes. That is standard procedure whenever there is an update or a revaluation or, a statistical change in value where we're using sales. And the Department of Revenue is concerned that the data we're using for sales is good data. So they are back-checking me. It's an audit, basically, that our information on our record cards represents the home that was sold. So that good data in, good data out, basically, for the revaluation. So that's what that is. They hope to be able to get to at least 35 homes. That's why they send out 50. People do not have to allow them into the home. There's no statutory requirement for that. But it does sort of reaffirm confidence in the reassessment. And that's what their purpose is, to just ensure a level of confidence that the assessment was done appropriately from an unbiased perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Pumpkin Festival update.
Right on time.
Things are heating up.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so Wade Campbell, 162 Mile Slip, also president of GTFC, and on my right is Zoe Lantaff.
Zoe Lantaff, 32 Comstock Drive, and I wear many different hats. I don't know exactly what my role is, but I am the entertainment coordinator. I'm also public relations. I'm dealing with the media right now, and a few other little things, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So there was some changes a few months ago, or about a month ago, which really hasn't affected a whole heck of a lot. Just put some more pressure on us. Everything else has been going along fairly well. Just to give you guys an update, Middle Street is pretty much full. I've got one spot left for a vendor at the tail end. That I have a couple of choices to make to fit somebody down there. Town Hall upstairs, not counting the banquet hall, is now full. We have the Oval is now full. The only thing we have that I've got to we got to jockey a little bit is Emerson Park, because we do have a postal first day of release stamp, which is going to be happening at the festival at 5 o'clock. If they approve the site, I still got to go through a site walk with them on Thursday at 1 p.m. And that'll give us whatever, right now it's a green light, and we're just waiting on them to give the final. I have a DC representative flying up from DC with their representatives and site coordinator and all this other stuff on Thursday. So that's kind of exciting. And we've got our cups going. Mark has one of our cups. For all those at home, that's what they look like. They are going on sale fairly soon, hopefully a pre-sale. I've been kind of sliding some out there when I can. And what else we got? What else? Got anything else?
We've got a lot of events, lots of activities that we're going to start posting more and more on our webpage. The music venue is full. We have that third stage down at Emerson Park this year, so a little more music. Things are actually looking really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually kind of excited at this point.
We've got the Milford Historical Society a little more involved this year as well. They're going to be giving a historical walking tour around the Oval area, both on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And I've got David Palance joining us again this year as well. He's going to do his Tomb Talks tour over in the cemetery on Elm Street again. So we have a couple other little things, little projects that we're still kind of working on. They're coming together. That last minute detail stuff.
I was hoping at this point in time, by like September 15th, we'd have everything wrapped up, but, for everything solidified of what was going on. But there's a few last minute details. I found out like last year, same thing. But the U.S. government kind of threw us a little bit of a bone and a curve. So now we're trying to accommodate for them. Yes.
And I'd just like to stress that the first day of issue of a new postage stamp is really a big deal.
Yes,
for
it is.
The U.S. Postal Service.
It is.
And to have a Halloween-type stamp issued here in Milford is pretty cool.
Yes.
That's very neat.
Yeah.
That's a nice.
And the funny story was with that is I received it a week prior, and I thought it was spam, so I ignored it. Okay? And I actually have a couple of contacts at the post office, at the annex and the one over here, and they were blowing up my phone, so I had to pull over in Lineborough and call the guy, because I was like, okay, I know what this is about. So I'm actually glad I did pull over, and things kind of rolled from there. So it's going to be exciting. It's really cool. As long as the weather holds off, we should be all set, so.
Thing's always in charge of that, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna do
hope
my
so.
little dance, my little, no
Rain dance, no rain dance.
The
Beautiful weather.
last item, all other duties.
Yep,
Yeah.
so, is there any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Are you guys gonna be able to use that new stage at all, like, at the entrance?
We have not planned to use that. I don't think it's gonna be in the cards this year. But there's something to look at maybe next year, and we can work at it with that.
Yeah, this is the first year that we've been able to get a third stage for more entertainment down at Emerson Park. And because of the haunted trail that takes place on Friday and Saturday nights, the music stops at 5 o'clock down there. But we have so much local talent. We're very fortunate here that we want to be able to get as much music as we can.
Yep. And plus it worked out too that we did put a third, had the idea, Zoe's
Yes.
idea worked out well with putting a third stage down there, because it works out for the stamp issue, so.
Good. Any further questions from the board? If not, well, thank you for all the work that
All right.
you've put
No,
into it.
thank everybody
you
for the help.
guys.
The town has been amazing,
Yeah.
again, police department, fire department answering all the questions.
Mm-hmm.
DPW, Chris Anton, I mean, they've gone above and beyond this time before the festival even happened, so.
Yeah,
they've
they make
answered
our
questions.
jobs much less stressful,
Yes,
for sure.
yes, so.
You know things are heating up because my email is just filling up with hundreds of things per day on.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
I know what that's like. I know exactly what that's like.
Hope you guys all get to come on down and enjoy it.
Thank
there.
you.
I definitely
Thank you,
will.
guys.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
too.
Thank you.
Janet, 5 minutes early, Janet and Tim?
On the other half. But before I put on the other hat, I'll go back to Pumpkin Festival real quick, just in case you're interested. The Community House Lawn venue is looking really good, too.
Okay.
We're full of nonprofits. We've got all of our activities going. However, if there are folks out there that have some jeans that are no longer good, long pants, long shirts, preferably plaid, straw hats, baseball caps, belts, whatever, we'd love them. There's a box right out here in the lobby of Town Hall. Or call me, 860-1202, and I'll come pick them up. We need them for the scarecrows.
I thought the jeans, as they got more holy, they get more valuable these days.
They do. However, we can stuff them with some of Trombley's good hay, and they'll be just great. So anyways, just want to throw that out. And Tim's doing a fantastic job. We've got 19 beer, wine, and spirits vendors that are going to be showing up. So it's going to be a good evening. Again, assuming that on the consent calendar, you approve that letter. However, we're here tonight in reference to the Milford Citizen of the Year. I'm representing, as is Tim, the Keyes Trust, Arthur L. Keyes Memorial Trust. Back in, as it mentioned in the documents that we sent you, back in February, March, April, the Historical Society made known that they weren't going to be able to continue this. And they had been doing the Milford Citizen of the Year in conjunction with MIT since 2006. This was something that, at that time, the Granite Town Festivities Committee and volunteers and Rotary Lions didn't want to see kind of go by the wayside. But because all of our organizations were so swamped steeped in the Pumpkin Festival, we were looking for another avenue, and that was the brainchild of coming up with maybe we could get all of the foundations to kind of come together to kind of work on this. So I reached out as a Keyes trustee to Kaylee. I've talked with other Lions, not with you, Paul, but other Lions, and just to see if we can get a group of people that would do the review process, and then for this year at least, we would do the secretarial part. So all of the documents that you've seen, the boxes, the posters, all those things we've kind of rolled out. Mark has been extremely helpful in getting this done. Yes, there were other things that got in the way, so it was a little last minute, but thanks to him and George Pelletier over at the cabinet, we've gotten some good publicity about this. And we've got a few nominations trickling in. So about the only thing I had out there for you guys was to see if somebody wanted to be on the review committee.
I'll do it.
Oh.
Or Paul.
Oh, go.
One's good. If I need to, I'll call Paul. He could wear a Lion's hat.
Go to bed.
I could put it out to bid. We could have an auction right now. We could. We're not going to, though. That's great. That's great. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
So the plan is to accept nominations at our email address, keystrust@gmail.com, or in one of the boxes. It's either at the library or here at Town Hall through the 27th, basically close of business. And then following that, in the next 3 days, we'll get the group together. I know that Bill Andrews from the Kaylee Foundation is interested, and I'm sure I have a couple of people from Milford Hospital Association, so to get a group of 5 together.
And is it you two also?
I'm sorry?
Who were the other people?
We haven't lined up
decided
everyone yet,
Oh,
but I won't be.
oh.
I'm going to recuse myself. We do have a couple of other previous Citizens of the Year that we're going to reach out to as well.
Oh.
So. Any questions?
Seeing none.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the use of your logo and the help of your staff.
That's what we're here for. And thank you for all that you're doing to it.
Thank you.
Okay, down to public comments. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Go down to the consent calendar. We have a number of, what's that?
No, go right ahead.
Okay,
Ignore me.
that's hard. There are a number of items on the consent calendar. First one is a request for approval for the Milford Volunteer Ambulance Association to hold their annual duck race raffle during this year's Pumpkin Festival in October in accordance with RSA 287A7. Secondly, there is a request for acceptance and appropriation of unanticipated revenues under $10,000 under RSA 3195B. And there are a number of them. We thank all of them for their donations. $50 Labor Day parade donation from Granite Financial Partners. $50 Labor Day parade donation from Morris and Cheryl Cody. $100 Labor Day parade donation from Steele Associates. $250 Labor Day parade donation, Sons of the American Legion, Squadron Number 23. $50 Labor Day parade donation from Stephen Marks Hair Salon. $500 Labor Day parade donation from the American Legion, Rishardi Hartson, Post Number 23. $300 for the Milford Fire Department for Fire Life Safety Educational Special Purpose Fund from PEP Response Systems LLC, and $300 for Milford Fire Department for Fire Life Safety Education Special Purpose Fund from Certronics Corporation. And finally, a request for approval of the Milford Pumpkin Festival Beer, Wine, and Spirits Tasting Tent. Is there anything to be taken off the consent calendar?
Make a motion, we accept it as it's presented.
Motion by Selectman Putnam to accept the consent calendar as presented. Second.
Second.
Second by Selectman Duziak. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. There you go, now you can go.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Right? It's all right.
Going on, under other decisions, we have the dispatch RFQ. And board members had received 2 documents. One from CTA and the other from Public Safety Communications, Communications Design Consulting Group, LLC.
When did you get those?
They've been in, well, we opened the bids a week ago Friday.
I want to answer that.
Okay.
I don't have those.
Okay.
I don't have those either. Oh, okay. I don't have the hard copies.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, there was an email,
Yep.
yeah.
I couldn't read the email, so.
No.
So just to summarize on here, we had the warrant article for $85,000 for the consultant. CTA came in with a requirements definition of $49,500 and an RFP development phase for $35,250, which brings it to a total of $84,750. The one by Communications Design Consulting came in with $33,750, but it seems to be only for the, just to put apples to apples, the requirements definition. If I read the document correctly, they're just getting information together so that an RFP can be made up. So I thought that the RFQ that went out asked for both things, to define what was needed and also asked for assistance in the development of the RFP. I may have interpreted that wrong, but Selectman Labonte?
I think in the CDCG one, meaning that was their price, but there was also optional items in there also, the way I read it. I guess, should we be looking into any of the optional items that they had? I'm assuming obviously the options can give you different information.
I guess you could. What was a little bit frustrating to me is that knowing that we were under somewhat of a timeline, I think we were looking for a package that we could say, okay, we're going to go with this and move forward. What we got from CDCG was something that said, well, if you take this, that's going to be an extra cost, and it'll be an extra cost for this. So I don't know where the cost stops except for $85,000, and I don't know.
In the defense of that, I think the RFQ we put out was pretty complicated, confusing, and not to the point. I think that there was a lot of, from the time we accepted the original RFQ to, there was questions about what they were supposed to look at, and then it was, well, come to the July 29th meeting, come to the meeting with Mount Vernon and Wilton. I personally feel that there was a whole lot of things with the RFQ that weren't really, I guess I'm going to say, explained It wasn't a black and white of what we were looking for.
Well, in contrast, though, we got considerably more from CTA as far as detail and cost, that were finite costs than we did from the other group.
I'm going to agree with Gary on that. The CTA proposal, to me, seemed like it responded to the RFQ as well as they could. The CDCG one was deficient.
And
I agree, Gary.
Okay. And I know, Mike, you didn't get a chance to.
I got them electronically, I just don't have the hard copies.
Okay.
There were a series of questions that were asked after the meeting. One of those questions was RFP development of a new dispatch center, and the responses, I believe that question came from CTA, but the responses went to everybody, and the response was yes. So we should have had,
In line with the responses, though, the responses also didn't follow the RFQ. The responses are supposed to come to the board. Am I correct on that? I guess, was that the way it was written? I just want to make sure of that. Do you have is there a way, do we have a copy of it? I guess I'd like to look at it to see what it was written. I believe the responses are supposed to come back to the Board of Selectmen, 1 Union Square.
I believe you're correct.
So in my honest eyes, I feel if questions came back, they didn't come appropriately. On any of them, I'm not trying to side with one or the other. I'm just going back on the whole thing I feel was unorganized. Which I suppose has no bearing. We still have to make a decision where to go on it.
Well,
But
ultimately-
I guess I'm trying to say, going forward, I would like to see things followed better, I guess.
Okay. Well, before us, we have two proposals. What's your desire?
I'd make the motion to go with the one that made the most sense.
CTA?
The most comprehensive one?
Yes.
Okay. So a motion by Selectman Putnam to, I guess, what's the word for it? To approve the CTA as the consultant. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Duziak. Any further discussion? Selectman Labonte.
So do we know exactly what we're getting out of this, is my question, I guess, just for clarification point. Meaning, is this going to give us all the answers that we're looking for?
I don't know that anything that came in, I think as you go along through the process, I think there will be more things that may come to light. But what I believe with CTA is that, you know, what they're gonna give us is what they indicate in here. For their price, it's less than $85,000, which should prepare us to go with the RFP so that we can move this forward and hopefully get this done in time to put it before the people in March.
So they will give us an answer that if we make the decision to stay with MacBase, they will give us the recommended upgrades to MacBase on everything that we need there?
That-
Or is this solely for a
No,
town-owned dispatch?
there's indicated that they were going to be looking at both.
Okay, I just wanted to make clear, I mean, I read both of them twice.
Yeah.
Actually, and I'll be honest, some of
Have
the
to.
things still, even after reading them twice, didn't make complete sense as far as what we were getting out of it. So I guess that's why I'm just asking, as a general consensus to the rest of us that have read it, is that gonna give us both answers, what was asked at the deliberative session, as far as whether it be for Milford Communications or for staying with MacBase?
My expectation is they're going to give us something that's going to enable us to look at both options. I mean, that was the expectation of the RFQ.
The only other concern that I had out of them is the answers. What is our deadline for a warrant article?
Early January?
The bond hearing,
Yeah.
Has to be in before the bond hearing.
yeah.
I actually have the SB2 calendar I'll be sending to you tomorrow, but a warrant article has to be put in before the January bond hearing.
Do you know, give or take, what that date is? It just
It's like,
A week before,
I
actually.
feel like, I think last year was the 12th or the 14th of January. So
the only reason why I'm
it's,
asking.
so it'd be in that
One of the
neighborhood.
responses said it would be in by the end of December. The other one said it would be in January. So I guess what I'm trying to say is to get a response, even let's say it's January 1st coming back in, doesn't really give you.
I think, and that point was brought to light, and I think one of the things that we're going to do is see if we can discuss with them, moving things up so that we have more time.
But, well, that's kind of where I was going, because on another step to the process, no matter where we choose to go, and correct me if I'm wrong, prior to the last day of December, we have to make a decision on MacBase, what we're doing, correct?
As far as notification,
Correct.
if we're going to get out of it.
Right.
We-
I guess, basically, you gotta let them know whether you're staying or leaving. I guess it's, all I'm trying to do is put those pieces together, meaning you gotta have all the pieces to the puzzle. I just didn't wanna end up getting the results to the report January 1st, but if we're supposed to have our answer in the last day of December, that's not really productive, I guess. So I agree, if we can move the date up earlier, I would be game for that to not be in the 11th hour of it coming in
No.
and winging it.
Ditto. Okay, so, see, we haven't voted yet, right?
Correct.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve CTA as the consultant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. And we
I
will-
have one question in regards to that
Yes.
after me. It has nothing to do with the vote. As far as communications with CTA going forward, will those be with Town Hall? Meaning if they have questions they're looking for, I'm going back to the RFQ, meaning.
Want us to send them right to your phone?
You can put them to, I don't have my email to my phone, but you can gladly send them to my laptop. I'm okay with that. My town email,
I
I'm
think
fine.
we will have a point person here
Okay.
Yeah.
so that the communication flows smoothly. Okay? Mr. Bender, how about an update on Osgood dredging?
Pleasure. So the town received our final funding approval from New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, the Division of Parks and Recreation, for the additional dredging of Osgood Pond on August 20th. In that approval, it stated that work is to be completed by August 31st, 2020, unless the project is extended. We have the required permits. The New Hampshire DES wetlands permit was extended to March of 2024, and the Army Corps of Engineer permit was extended to August of 2022. Our RFP was posted September 2nd. We have a meeting scheduled for questions with potential bidders on August 13th. Lincoln Daly will be handling that meeting, and a bid due date of September 20th. There is a requirement in the permit for a certified wildlife biologist to conduct site inspections, so we built that into the terms of the RFP. The location for spoils is tentatively set for the gravel pit area in the community lands, unless the selectmen specify another area, and that would require then an amendment to the RFP or the contract award. At a prior meeting, a resident expressed concern about a drawdown of the pond in autumn. You should keep in mind that New Hampshire Fish and Game requires a 2-week notice for the drawdown, that they are aware of our planning on this project. Fish and game concerns will be about the banded sunfish, Blanding's turtles, hognose snakes. Those are the rare, threatened, and endangered species. And also invasive plants like Purcell loosestrife. New Hampshire Fish and Game will also require us to work around hatching season. That nesting and hatching season typically is May 20th through September 15th, so we're in prime hatching season now, near the end of it. But then they also get concerned about winter hibernation schedules, which start later this month or the first part of October. We've asked Fish and Game to provide information and guidance on the timing of operations, specifically the drawdown, when we can install the silt fence barrier to prevent species from entering the site. That typically is installed around mid-September to mid-October. So between nesting season and hibernation season, we've got some challenges, but some options as far as our timing. Number one is we can maintain the water level as late in fall as possible, working with Fish and Game. Then lower the pond, dry it out, dry out the work area, and install the silt fence. We could do excavation and removal of the spoils, the dredging, during the winter. Or we can wait until spring. If we wait until spring, we have to wait until the species have emerged from hibernation to draw down the pond, dry out the work area, and install the silt fence. The challenge then is to hope for a dry spring and early summer, so we can either complete the work on time or get an extension. I talked to Fish and Game last week. They were meeting and discussing this. I followed up again today, but I did not get a call back. So we should also keep in mind that a resident is challenging the state grant funding award. No update, so the status of that is not clear. So at this point, I guess I'd like to know the board's preference on the options, starting either as soon as possible this fall or waiting till spring.
I would propose starting as soon as possible. I was able to speak with Chris Costatino of the Conservation Commission. It's her opinion, and she's far more knowledgeable about this stuff than I am, that less wildlife will be impacted the earlier we do it with excavation in the winter.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah. Agree.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so I guess early is good.
Okay.
I do have one question.
You
Yes.
want to vote or?
He has a question. Well,
On the meeting for September 13th, do you know what time that is?
No, I don't think I have that with me. I can let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a question?
You want to vote on that or? is it
Yeah, I think, yeah.
consensus?
Okay, so I'll take a motion by Selectman Duziak to, that we start the
yeah,
project.
start the
Bureau-
dredging project as
Bureau-
soon as we can.
Okay,
Second.
and a second by Selectman Putnam. And seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
The second thing for me is the fire station update. Voters approved warrant Article 3 in March 2018, authorizing an expenditure of $3,864,000 for this upgrade. Chief Flaherty has done a very good job monitoring the project and the expenses, completed on time and on budget, barely on budget, but on budget. Total expenditures to date were $3,813,000. We have an additional payment to the general contractor for $20,000, putting us at $3,833,000. Gives us a balance of $31,000, and those funds are targeted to outfit the bunk rooms and also do some work with data storage and communications. So we're going to bring it in right at the $3,864,000. And the full amount of that warrant article, the bond for that was placed on June 24th.
Okay. Any questions?
Good job.
Just yes. Thank you, Chief. Great job in bringing that in.
Thank you.
Well done.
Don't often see things actually come in on budget.
Oh, he put his heart and soul into it.
Well, it's more like his life. Okay, next up, we have the purchasing and procurement policy. I asked for this to come forward at this time because a couple meetings ago, we had some issues, and they seem to revolve around three places, primarily in the procurement document. Those places are under the procurement authority, the procurement process, and the bid award. And just for those who weren't here at the time, back in 2014, we made a change. I think the change primarily you see under the authority part, which indicates that greater than 25,001, approval of the Board of Selectmen is required for the procurement of goods and services in excess of 25,000, which are not otherwise approved in the budget. So in other words, if something was off budget, then the selectmen would need to approve the procurement. By doing that, it kind of left it, okay, what happens if it's in the budget over 25,000? Doesn't answer that, and it further complicates it when you go down to the bid award, because as you go through the process part, it says if it's over 25,000, it says that we'll go out to bid pursuant to the competitive procurement guidelines established in the policy. The bid award says that the bid bids meeting the specifications shall be reviewed by the department head in consultation with the town administrator and others as needed. A recommendation shall be made to the Board of Selectmen for approval. So, on one hand, you're saying that you really don't need the board to approve it if it's within the budget. On the other hand, you've got something that says if it goes out to bid, then it needs to be approved. So that's what we need to resolve tonight. My thought in going, because I've given this a lot of thought, and I don't want the board to get to the point of micromanaging things. We do need to determine what thresholds are going to be set. I constantly remind myself that this board is a board that gives recommendations to the voters. We don't make that choice. We come up with a proposal, we put it before them. What they approve in the budget, has been approved. I'm not sure if it's necessary to go back and reapprove something that they've already approved. And, yes.
I guess one comment to that, especially being a past member of the Budget Advisory Committee, when a budget is actually given to the voters, it actually doesn't outline and say what it is. I guess being on Budget Advisory last year, I had no knowledge that there was any money in the budget for, let's say, rekeying Town Hall. I mean, there's nothing specific in there. So I guess I disagree in part over that if it was approved in the budget, I guess as long as we're going to start giving a complete budget to our voters that say, this is exactly what we're looking at spending our money on, which I don't feel we should have to go down that road. I personally feel that bringing it in front of the board is, in my eyes, the appropriate way to deal with it.
Okay, and just
I just wanted to-
so I understand your comment. We understand that the budget that comes before us now at the department level, and this is actually spelled out in the authority, that the department head has the authority to approve procurements within the department's annual budget. The town administrator has a chance to approve things that are larger in cost within the town's budget. So that means that, what the voters vote on is the bottom line of the budget. And then it becomes, where does the money get spent? And to your point, I would agree. If it's not in something that says, well, I'll use the keying, for instance, if, unless there was something in there for security or something like that, then I would think that that would be something that would be out of budget. And the policy as it states right now clearly talks about that. The problem get to, and we may want to address that, is if the keying wasn't more than 25,000, then it wouldn't come to the selectmen. It just kind of ends up in limbo. And so I think we're looking to close up some of the loopholes here. Just a little bit of history that I think we came up with the procurement policy in 2007. At that time, we had the procurement authority from 0 to 3,500 for department heads, from 3,501 to 25,000 for the town administrator, and then greater than 25,000 for the Board of Selectmen. In 2014, those thresholds were raised from 0 to 7,500 for department heads, 7,501 to 25,000 for the town administrator, and then greater than 25,001 for the Board of Selectmen, if it wasn't approved in the budget. And again, you've got that hole there where I think you need to figure out that, if it is in the budget, that you're going to let the town administrator just do the things that they do and go ahead and get that. I don't know how you want to define that up, bid versus non-bid, but.
Do we have a rough guess as to how many individual decisions there are for items over 25,000? I mean, is it 1 a month, 10 a month? I know it varies a lot, but.
It's more the type. I mean, I went through the budget this afternoon.
Yeah.
And looked, and there really aren't an awful lot of.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. If it-
However, when you get into things like insurance, the electricity, the utilities, things like that,
Yeah.
and I'm excluding wages in there, too. But
I'm thinking things like paving, like there's different paving jobs.
You have maybe half a dozen things within DPW.
The paving, we bring the paving plan to the board for discussion every year. So if we bring the plan in, do we then still need to bring in individual expenses? It seems like that's already been covered. And salt, in an individual purchase of road salt is not over $25,000, but cumulatively and in the budget, it's 75.
Salt's kind of a good example, too, because there is a notation after the authority and the process that says, in no instance may the authority or process levels be circumvented by making multiple individual purchases in succession or breaking up common service or vendor procurements to try to violate that. So any justified changes to an original procurement that moves procurement from one level or authority or process shall be acted on by the higher level.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, finish.
My thought, like, there's one issue would be if you ever wanted to award not to the lowest bidder, if there's some other parameter that comes into play, I think that kind of thing might want to bring to the board. And we could if you go into the lowest bidder, then it's pretty straightforward. There's not very many times when you don't go to the lowest bidder.
Right.
But it happens.
But there may be reasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if there was such a way, and I don't know how to word this, so I'd be open to help on wording it. If you want to say something as far as capital expenditures, whether it be buildings, land, vehicles, or capital upgrades, whether it be rekeying town hall. I understand where you're going with the salt and all stuff like that. But those are what I'm going to call our I'm gonna say your common reoccurring everyday costs. Salt, electricity, oil, natural gas, propane, whatever we do. I guess I don't know how to word it as far as to put in capital type expenditures.
Yeah, I had actually was trying to think along that line. I don't know that I came up with anything either, except that, I mean, if you wanted to set another threshold to say, you know, for instance, capital improvement. Our capital improvement plan starts at 75,000. If we said that anything over 75,000,
It's gonna go to a warrant article anyways, isn't it?
it could, I mean, you still conceivably could have something in the budget.
Yeah.
If the police department bought 3 cars, you're gonna be over
But
75,000.
that's gonna be 3 separate purchases, meaning 3 separate.
But it's in the budget, and that's, see, that's where it kind of gets dicey, is that,
But I guess that's why I'm putting the word capital in there as far as typically your capital assets. Your capital, your vehicles would fall into your assets, your building, your land.
I mean, once they're approved in the budget, and the budget's approved by the people, you still want department heads to bring it back to us for our approval?
I guess at what point, Mike, does anybody in town know anything about the budget on what's in it? What actually is in the number? And I guess I think what we don't necessarily want is people at the deliberative session saying what is in the fire department budget, you know, exactly what are you spending it on? There's the leeway that's there. You take, for say, you know, whether it be the police department, fire department, ambulance, any of them, I don't want, you put a dollar amount in there for a vehicle, but there's nothing saying we're buying a vehicle. So in truth, to say the voters approved the budget, I guess I'm gonna say blindly, the voters approved the budget not knowing what was in it.
I don't know that I could agree with that. I think through some pains that we've had in the past, we've become very transparent. I mean, the town administrator gives a long presentation, and that's one of the things when we used to have the police vehicles out is a separate warrant article, and through the request of people, we put them in the budget. But we make sure that when we talk about the police budget, we mention that they plan on buying 2 vehicles. Likewise, and I think we go painstakingly through the departments to identify and be transparent to the people so that they know what the money is going for in the specific thing, whether it's, you know, for paving or DPW or security for something else. So I think we've done a good job, and I know that, you know, not only this administrator, but the previous one, we have built up that transparency over the years to make sure that people aren't going to be able to come back to us and say, hey, how come you came up with 2 cars that we didn't know about? So it's all about us making sure that at the presentations at the deliberative session, that people know what's in the bond and budget hearing, the same thing. They have a couple opportunities to find that out. Plus, I think those things are usually pretty well identified within the voter's guide as well.
I guess part of my point on where I'm going with this is it's not like it's a painstakingly hard process to go through, that if the ambulance wanted to replace one of their paramedic vehicles, that it got brought to the board and the board approved it, meaning you're talking, what, a couple-minute conversation. You're not talking an hour dialogue back and forth.
But we've already discussed it. We've already approved it. Why do they have to come back to us? I don't understand that part.
Actually, to correct, we recommended that it be approved, and the voters said, yeah, go ahead and replace it.
Correct. And you remember, the voters elected you to take care of this stuff because they don't have the time to do it. So the decisions made at this table are fully representative of the people, as far as I'm concerned.
I completely agree as far as representative of the people, Mike. I'm not disagreeing at all. I guess I feel when you start to look at the different scenarios, it's just another oversight over the purchase on what's in the best interest of the taxpayers.
There's only so much oversight you can levy. There's just so much you can put on there without it becoming a burden. All of a sudden, the department heads are not overworked, that's not the word I'm looking for, but they're doing more work than they really should have to.
I guess we can agree to disagree, Mike.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not looking to argue over the point. I'm just putting a point out there. I agree with you wholeheartedly as far as it's the citizens that put each one of us here. On the same note, I guess part of the reason why I'm voicing my concern is because of the citizens that have come to me and said, you need to have the oversight over that.
Who's the citizens?
Do I have to keep a list, Mike?
You should, yeah, if you're gonna use the citizens that have come to me.
Well, I guess if we're going to go down that road, and I'm going to make this a quick point so it's not banter back and forth, if we're here to represent the citizens, Mike, you just voted on a document you haven't even seen.
I've read it. It was.
You just said I haven't seen it, Mike.
I haven't seen the hard copy.
Okay, we're getting off track.
Exactly my point.
We're getting off track. I guess the way I look at it, this board changes, can change on a yearly basis. The only thing when we're elected is we're guaranteed 3 years here if we don't die first.
Or move.
And, the department heads, they're normally here. They're making a career. That's what they do for a living. So, I mean, whether somebody needs a new ambulance, or they need a new police car, or they need to upgrade capital equipment, I'm going to listen to what they say. And that, I can only make my decision based upon the best information I can get. But that's why we have department heads that come in and present to us for the budget. That's why we have a town administrator that works on a day-to-day basis with department heads to make things go well. So as I said, my interest is not in having this board micromanage things. I'd like to make it just as transparent as we can, and we do that through the budget process. But, just allow the employees to go out and do what they're supposed to do, because that's what they want to do. Yes.
The board does provide oversight in terms of reviewing all the purchases. It's kind of after the fact. When a purchase order is placed, and we're going to cut a check, that's reviewed by selectmen in detail. So there is management of the process. It's just not before the order is placed. It's sort of after the fact, but it's there.
I don't think any of us just just say, okay, it's not our problem anymore. I think, we're constantly, our job is to take the 30,000-foot view and make sure that everything is running well. We do that primarily through the town administrator, who is in charge of the day-to-day operations. Obviously, there are times when we start hearing from residents on one reason or another that we will bring it to, I bring it to the town administrator, because that's the chain of command. And he'll take it to the appropriate department head, whether it's filling a pothole, or, that you've got some building that's ready to come down. So I'm not saying that we should neglect everything that we do, but I think we do have the oversight. We make our decisions, and if something isn't working, we normally hear about it through one of the five of us.
So I would recommend that we change it so that that comment about bringing it to the selectmen at the very end, that's not there, that we follow the policy that's described up front, where if it's over 25,000 and not in the budget, that it goes to the selectmen. If it's in the budget, that it doesn't have to come to the selectmen.
Okay, so.
But I'd like to add a proviso that if we're selecting other than the low bidder, over 25,000, that it come to the selectmen.
So I think that could be changed in item 10 on page 7 of the policy.
At the bid award?
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
can
okay.
add that
Yeah.
to that section if you like.
That's what I would like.
Okay.
So if I understand this right, so anything up to $25,000, the town administrator can approve it as long as it's identified within the budget.
No, anything.
As long as it's in the budget, the town administrator can.
That's what I just read, right out of the policy on page 2. Line B. No, up higher. Oh, sorry. Up to 25,000. I guess what I'm saying, so if it's in the budget, you can sign up to 25.
That's
If,
what you're deciding.
no, this is a question on the current policy. I want just clarification.
That is correct.
So over 25,000, if it's in the budget, who signs for it?
Well, that's
Yeah,
where I was going after.
I actually think we ought to
Do we
give
do-
the administrator authorization to spend money. If it's not in the budget, you know, he has to manage the budget.
So if-
Something comes up that is
So if-
unanticipated, that's $1,000. He should be able to say, okay, I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna take the money from here and use it for here. It might not have been anticipated in the budget up front.
Okay, so do we want to continue to set a $25,000 threshold to come to the board for items not in the budget? So let me
Yes.
just
Yeah,
try to
that's my
lay
opinion,
it out.
yeah.
So what if we said that we changed B on there and said, or above 7,500, that the town administrator has a full authority to approve procurement of goods and services that are identified within the budget.
Say that one more time?
So we're take on B, where it says from 7,501 to 25,000, what if we took out the 25,000 and just said, above 7,500, the town administrator shall have full authority to approve procurement and goods of services identified within the town budget. So that, as long as it's within the budget, the town administrator would have the authority to do that spending.
I still have the same feeling as far as accept capital purchases. I feel capital purchases should come in front of the board.
Define capital purchases.
Vehicles, land, buildings.
Well, by statute, if we're working on real estate transactions, that has to be the board. So you're really just talking about
Vehicles,
Vehicles
equipment, meaning,
and larger pieces of equipment are warrant articles anyways.
I just know in the past, we've had questions that have come up that we've gone to this for, leasing equipment. You know, that came up, should, you know, its value on leasing is over 75, you know, for a total, but per year, you know, it was under, so there was the question of that. I guess I just still feel, like Paul said, and I agree with him, this isn't something where you're gonna get 15 requests every meeting. And I feel that we've actually like beat it so much tonight that I don't understand if they would just come to them. The amount of them that come to the board a year are gonna be extremely minimal.
What kind of things that are under 25,000 that aren't in the budget? How often do we run into that situation?
Yeah, I don't know, Paul, I think it's pretty rare. Most things, we've been doing this stuff for a long
Yeah.
time, so most things are anticipated in the budget. You'll run into an occasional consultant's fee or something like that for a special project. But we do have money set aside for those things, not necessarily the specific project. But we know over the course of a year that we're going to incur legal costs, we're going to incur consultant fees to get some of our projects finished. So those things just come up.
Does the board have to approve the purchase of land by the Conservation Commission?
Pretty sure we do.
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, not the library, or something that what utilities is doing, but, yeah, conservation, you still have oversight over conservation.
No, and then water and sewer, if we're purchasing any property or building,
That's
we've got to bring it to the select. So it's, because it's going to ultimately belong to the town.
I guess a
I think
question.
even the library would bring it here
So, Paul, what was your proposed amendment to B? Or was it not a proposed amendment to B?
Well, there was the issue of not choosing the low bidder. And I want
Okay.
to, okay, I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about, but,
No, you had said something about the amounts, but that's fine.
well, think of the things that aren't in the budget, and I'm kind of struggling with figuring out what would that be. A lot of times, there's money in the budget, on a topic, that might be, DPW has a whole bunch of money to do different things, and they get something that's unanticipated, but it's really in the budget because you're not going to do something else. You're going to take that money and use it to
Right.
do the
Right.
unanticipated
But
thing.
I think your previous comment, though, had more to do with the process. The process that says that greater than 25,000, all procurements having an estimated cost in excess of 25,001 shall be bid pursuant to the competitive procurement guidelines established in the policy. And then on the bid award, which was on, I think someone said page 7, but that would, yeah, in that case, there, I mean, it would still come to the board. I mean, so let's ask the question a different way. Is there any time that something goes out for bid that you don't think it needs to come back to the board? So think in terms of something's in the budget.
Yeah, like insurance. Hypothetically, it's $100,000. You're going to send it out, get 3 bids or whatever you can. You're going to take the low bidder. It's something that's done every year. I don't think we need to get involved with that. It's pretty straightforward.
I don't even have a problem, Gary, with doing what your proposed amendment to B is just striking the 25,000 if it's already identified in the budget.
I have one question, Gary.
Yes.
If I can ask Mike, wastewater procedures. Does Kevin have the authority down there, meaning just to buy anything, or does it have to go in front of the Board of Governors? The only reason why I'm asking is because wastewater typically is like, if you want to say on the same plane, is the Board of Selectmen. And they have their.
The commissioners.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, we approved the budget, and anything that's within the budget, he goes ahead and spends.
So anytime there's a new vehicle or whatnot, it doesn't come back to the Board of Governors?
No.
Okay. I'm
Board of Commissioners.
Commissioners, I'm sorry. That's, like I said, I just feel.
We do the bid opening when they send out the bid for the vehicles. So that comes to us. The bid for vehicles.
Then you approve the bid after for the purchase if you choose to.
Right.
So you do ultimately vote to authorize the purchase of the vehicle,
Correct.
which is where I'm going.
We approved the bid.
Which is what, that is what this is about, on what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And exactly that scenario right there would fit the same thing with this.
Yes.
But are those vehicles already in the budget?
Yes. But it's just the issue of the low bid. Is sometimes you get the low bid, but it's not precisely what we're looking for. Or there's another reason that we might want to go with the second, the next to the highest bid or the highest bid.
I completely agree with what you're saying, Mike, and that's why I feel it should come before the board.
Eric?
But if it was the low bid, would it come back to the commissioners?
Well, we open the bids when the bid openings we're at, so.
Our policy on page 7, item 8 says all bids will be opened by the town administrator, so that's a difference in how it's handled.
Eric?
Thank you. Just, if something's going to go into, from my perspective as the department head for the ambulance, if something of significant value is going to go into the budget to be approved, and it is currently under the policy over 25,000, we go out and get 3 bids. If I do that, I come to you and say, this is my recommendation, excuse me, my recommendation to go into the budget, and you agree with that, it's already been, like Selectman Putnam just said, it's been approved by the board, and now it's just a matter of, after the budget goes through, hopefully goes through, then we're going to go out and spend it. Now we're just pulling the trigger, if you will, on purchasing that item that has already been approved by the board. I agree with you that if it is something different, i.e. there's been a change or something has happened, yes, then it's my responsibility, I feel it's my responsibility to come back to the town administrator and the board and say, this has changed, we would like to make a modification for whatever it may be. But if you've already approved, this is what we've done, then,
I think the scenario we're talking about is a little bit different. Let's say if you had an ambulance that was in the budget, and the voters passed it.
Yep.
Saying, okay, yeah, go buy a new ambulance. You go out for 3 bids because of the price of an ambulance. The voters have already approved the purchase of that. Do you feel that you should be able to just go out and buy the ambulance, or do you have to now get the 3 bids? Do you have to bring those bids back to us and have us approve?
In my scenario, I've already done that. I've already gone out and got that information and come to you and said, this is what I want to buy, and I know how much it's going to be. It's not, here's carte blanche, here's $200,000, now go buy an ambulance. I've already identified that ambulance. Now, specifically with the warrant articles, we have a rough idea what we're going to get, and then the final details will be done at a later date. But I need to identify how much money I need in advance. Most of the times, I'm going to know specifically what I want to buy and come to you for that authority. Obviously, we're not putting an ambulance in the budget. That's going to be a warrant article, but my point being
But
is
you're
that-
still going out for bid.
Absolutely.
For 3 bids.
Absolutely.
But you know before you go out to bid what you're looking for.
Yes, I'll put the RFP
And then you
together.
get,
They're gonna come
3
back,
bids in.
And I'm
you-
going to
you-
identify how much it is, and then I'm going to come to you and say, okay, I need a warrant article for this, or in this case, we're going to put it in the budget.
Okay,
But you've
well-
already said,
Okay, wait.
yes, that's what you're going to do.
It's a little bit different. I think we're talking being in the budget versus a warrant article, not doing a warrant article.
My point is that for it to go into the budget, you need to know how much to put in the budget. And so I'm going to come to you very specifically. I'm going to use the example of a cruiser. They know what they want. That's what, they're going to get that information. They're going to come to you. Now, you've already decided that, yeah, we're going to put that amount in the budget, and that's what they're going to buy. So, similar to the bid opening, but you have that authority. You already know that information.
I guess part of my reasoning on why I feel it should come to the board still is, even let's say you're gonna replace a paramedic vehicle, and you have, I'm just throwing crazy numbers, you're gonna put $40,000 into it. I guess you know that 40,000, I guess to me, bringing it back to the board is, what are you trading in, what are you getting? To me, it's just the oversight of the whole thing. I guess as far as that way, is where I'm getting at, meaning that fills the whole package.
Again, respectfully, that's what I would give to you in advance. I would tell you that I'm going to trade this vehicle in, it's going to be $1,000, so now I'm asking for $39,000, just using your $40,000 example. I'm going to tell you the whole package, this is what it's going to cost. Boom, that's it. Unless there is something that changes after you've approved it and something happens there, then I'm going to come back and have a conversation with you. But otherwise, we've done all that information and due diligence for you.
Isn't that what these Saturday meetings about? When we meet on that Saturday, we go over we're the perfect example on the vehicles. So we have a dealer that we deal with every year. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago I had to do a memo in reference to why we deal with this dealer. So, but on that Saturday meeting that we have before budget, we go over the whole budget and we explain to you the vehicle, we explain to you the costs. You guys the board questions us about the cost, and we explain what we need if we're removing a radio from one vehicle or not. So going into that, at the end of the meeting, I think the board usually knows the cost of what it's going to be to outfit the vehicle and so on. And at that meeting,
I think you either approve or you say yes or no on that extra vehicle or the one vehicle or so on. So I'm not sure. So the oversight, you are getting the information, and you go from there with that information. So you're saying yes. Last year in particular, the budget committee wanted 2 vehicles, the board wanted 1. After discussions on everything, we decided to go 1 vehicle. That was based on the board's decision, taking everybody's input in. So I think the information is getting out on a Saturday morning meeting. Unless I'm missing what you're saying on that. That's where I thought we had that meeting to go over these big purchases like that. And each department head reviews the whole budget with the board and also the budget committee.
I understand where you're going. I still feel that it should come to the board for the approval. I guess I look at, I know it sounds crazy, on all the other things that we approve. I guess maybe, am I looking at it the wrong way? Should we start cutting other stuff that comes to the board that we approve?
Example?
I don't have an example with me currently, Mike. I'll get you one,
On
meaning.
what we approve currently. You don't have an example?
Off the top of my head right now, I don't.
Okay, well, I'm going to get, it's going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to go back to the semantics about what do we approve? We're not approving anything. We're making a recommendation to voters. So what we're talking about are things that are in the budget, and once they are approved by the voters, do they need to come back to be approved again by the board? I mean, it's a lower level than the voters, so why do we need to give approval again when a higher authority has already given their approval?
I guess I don't have an answer for you right now, Gary, on that. I guess I'm going back to all the problems in the past with this policy that we've had. How many times has this policy come into question in the last 5 years?
Well, the problem is you've got conflicting things in there. You've got places that say that it doesn't need to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, and then in another place it says that a recommendation needs to come to the board. Those are the things I'm looking to get straightened out. But, I wanted to find a starting place, and, my natural starting place was that, as a board member, I report to the voters. If they say it's okay to spend something, why does it have to come back to me for me to say, okay, yeah, go ahead? Because if we say no, then we're going against the very people who elected us.
So maybe for tonight's purposes, we can just fix some of these discrepancies and then,
Well, what's the urgency?
We
I
could-
don't
we
mean to
could-
cut you off, but do we need a decision tonight, or we can?
well, I think that we can certainly clear up the discrepancies, but we don't have to go into detail, I don't think, about all of the amounts. Maybe we could schedule a work session if you want to get into it in greater detail, but I don't want to be here till midnight.
I guess, just if I can respond just to Mike's point, the 30,000 or 30 whatever thousand we approved on additional paving, which was in a budget for paving, why did we have to approve that? I feel we should have, but I'm asking to go with where you're going. That was a budgeted item.
That was money that was being shifted from its original use to a different use, correct?
And that came out of the paving, out of the road.
Well, it still came out of paving, but we were working with some funds that had been authorized for the Water Utilities Commission, and we were consolidating the procurement of that with Public Works. You're still paying the bill, but we were consolidating it under the Public Works umbrella. It's just, that's just being transparent about it.
I completely agree, Mark, and you couldn't have said it better, and I guess that's where my point's coming down to. You ask for an example as far as with the money, that would fit your bill on your question right there.
But you couldn't identify that paving transaction in this policy. That is the judgment of the town administrator deciding what should come to the board as being good governance.
I guess I'm referring to, in my eyes, the way I would have seen it, in my own personal way, is that would have fallen over the 25,000, which would have responded with the board. I understand what you're saying. It's conflicting on how it says it. All I'm getting at is you asked for an example. That was the first one that came to my mind right there. I'm not looking to beat this like any, meaning, I agree, I don't want to be here till midnight, but I guess we know there's problems with it, we know it conflicts. The question is, are we going to fix it tonight, or when are we going to fix it?
Well, what I'm getting at is that what we've done in the past with this particular document, every time we've opened it up, is we put a committee together, a couple of selectmen, and we sit down, go over it, make the recommendations, and bring them back to you, so we're not sitting here beating this thing to death.
We can do that. But I was interested in, after thinking of it and just getting in multiple scenarios, I was interested in everyone else's input into this too. Yes.
Why don't we ask Mr. Bender to put together a modification to the document that cleans up the discrepancies, that doesn't require things in the budget to come back to the board. If it's off budget, it comes back to the board, over 25,000. And also anything that's not the low bid comes back to the board. I think that kind of summarizes the majority view.
So what purchases that would not be included in the budget? The $14 million that we approve, like how much money do we ever spend outside the budget?
I can think of,
Yeah.
in my 4+ years, I can think of at least one, maybe two occasions where there was a purchase of something that was not in the budget, or we were reallocating money within the budget that I brought back to you.
I guess where I'm going on it, whether it's, if it's reallocated, it's still out of the budget, meaning it's still within the budget, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, all the instances I can think of, and I think it was a couple of years ago, I think that we bought a police car in December, so that we didn't have to buy as many the next year. I mean, that was out of budget. But it came back to the board to get their approval to use that money for that purpose. So I'm trying to think of something that wasn't, that was out of budget that we didn't deal with. And
I guess where my point was going with that is that I'm still saying it depends. It depends how it's in the budget. I guess if I have to be the one to do it, at the Saturday meeting, I'll sit at the Saturday meeting and say exactly, to each department, exactly what are you going to buy for a vehicle. And I don't feel that necessarily that should have to be done. I think it's easier to be brought to the board.
So what are you looking to change? You're just looking to give them permission on the vehicle that they want to purchase versus the one you think they should purchase?
It has nothing to do with what I think they should purchase, Mike. Okay.
Well, I
just want you to put it out that way. It's not a case of micromanaging the department. I guess I just feel it's oversight for what we were elected to do.
Because the other night with the DPW truck, you sounded like you didn't want that truck and you wanted something else.
Actually,
That's
Mike,
the
I
way
can
you
clarify
sound.
not to go down that road, but I'll go down it. I was not against I was not against buying a new truck, Mike.
No, I'm
What
not
what I
saying
was
that.
against that is when I brought up the fact of the truck that we were trading in, I was saying we have another one that has like plywood sides, which just so we know, that truck that Chris identified that was not that, it actually is a truck. The sides have been rotten off and it's been replaced with plywood. It's truck 11. It's a 2006 F-350.
okay, again, we're getting off
I understand,
track
but
here.
I guess what I'm getting at, Mike, going on the value of it, I guess to me it was the value aspect of it. That why I was against that whole deal is we were trading in the truck that's worth more money so that we could get a new truck.
Versus,
If we traded in the truck that wasn't worth as much, we may not have been able to get the truck they were going after.
Mr. Bender?
Can I summarize what I've heard?
Yes.
Paul's asked me to rewrite item B on page 2. I can do that within what I've heard this evening. At the next meeting, if you still want to add something about capital purchases for vehicles, then you can still throw that around. You can still discuss that. So I'll work on item B. I will leave C alone, because that is 25,000 for items not in the budget. On page 7, under bid award, I'm going to rewrite that to put some wording in if we're not selecting the low price bidder. I'm also going to fix, on page 6, the very first item, number 4, the town administrator shall invite all bids by advertisement in at least, L-E-A-S-E, should
Yeah.
be least, so
Yeah.
I will correct least. And I don't know what happened to item 7 on page 6. It's on there, but there's no language, so I'll correct.
That,
correct
no,
the number.
no, just take the 7 out.
Yeah.
Or take the 8 out, because you have 2 8s.
Oh, we have 2 8s?
Yeah, the acceptance of
There
bid
we go.
is 8,
Okay.
So
and the bid opening is
acceptance
8.
of bids will become 7,
Yeah.
and bid opening will be 8.
And on item 10 on page 7,
Yeah.
the second paragraph, it won't go to the Board of Selectmen for approval.
Right, yeah, that.
On
that's all
on both
part
of those, yeah,
item
okay,
10.
okay.
Or I think, weren't you saying that a recommendation shall made to the Board of Selectmen for approval if
Yeah.
the selection is not the low bid, or
Yeah,
something like
yes.
that?
But otherwise, it doesn't have to go.
Right.
And we can continue this discussion next week.
Okay. You may also want to add into that just a clarification to match up, say, recommendation made to the Board of Selectmen if it's not the low bid, or the purchase was out of budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
You wanna add
that's-
a little
that's
bit
good.
in C also?
Yeah, just add the
10.
similar language in 10
Okay.
that you have in C, and that way
Yeah,
it's
it's all
It's clear.
summarized in
Yeah.
that one section.
And we'll start with that. If we have to carry on the discussion at another time, then we'll find another midnight we can go to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any public comments? Any public left? Reports from boards, commissions, committees? Anything?
Yeah, the library trustees are in the process of working on a warrant article for their expansion renovation project. I was at a meeting August 20th. The architects presented their final plan. I think it was pretty impressive. There should be a video of it online. They've kind of scaled back what they were looking for the last time the voters didn't approve the project.
You saying the video's there now, or it's going to be there?
It should be. It should be there now.
Okay.
I saw it when I was at the meeting, but I didn't actually look it up myself after.
Any others?
No.
Parking committee meeting was gonna meet tomorrow night for its second meeting, but, that's gotta be put off for a reason, and we're still trying to figure a night that we can meet on, so
Okay.
that's still in progress, but
This is a second meeting?
Yes.
right. Trying to get the second meeting established.
You haven't found space yet?
Not looking for space, looking for time.
Oh,
There's conflicts.
okay.
A lot of people couldn't make it tomorrow, so they trying to find a new day.
How many on the committee? Lot. Anything else? If you'd like to, yeah.
Just an update for the board and the public, mostly the public. I've asked our new finance director to start doing some internal audits. I felt that was always a good business practice and one that we should have been doing. He recently completed one working with the Director of Public Works at the transfer station. It has yet to be reviewed with the transfer station supervisor. But one change that we are proposing that we would like to test is a slight change in hours at the transfer station. We're in a bit of a conflict with the New Hampshire Department of Labor because of the schedule on Friday, where the transfer station is open from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. And the employees generally report an hour or a half hour early and stay a half hour late. So to avoid a conflict with DOL, we change that to closing at noon on Friday, and we would add an hour to the Thursday schedule. So operating hours over the week would remain the same, but we'd shift a little bit between Friday and Thursday. So we'd like to test it, see how it works out. If we get complaints, well, we'll have to do something different. And there are some other minor changes in procedures there, but that was the one that might affect the public.
When does that go into effect?
We'd like to start it October 1st.
Okay.
How are you gonna advertise that?
We'll put it up on the website and put a sign up out there.
At the transfer station.
Okay, we have 3 sets of minutes. Anyone have any modifications to any of them? Seeing none is,
I did.
yes, okay.
On the August 19th minutes, page 5, line 283. The sentence starts, "He appreciates the town administrator bringing it to use." That should be bringing it to us.
Which, to us, that he didn't need to do that.
Right.
Or maybe just a comma. Because he
That was
didn't
the
need to
August
do-
19th, you said?
Yes.
You want to do them separately, Gary, or
Uh,
all
Do
three?
them separately, because
Yeah, let's do them separately. Let's do August 12th first.
Yeah, 'cause there was one there I wasn't at.
I move that we
Okay.
approve August 12th as presented, or was that the one that was modified?
is
No, that
19.
wasn't modified. Second.
Motion by Selectman Dargy, seconded by Selectman Duziak to approve the minutes of August 12th. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, motion carries. August 19th, we've recognized one modification, one amendment to that. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman
Second.
Duziak, second by Selectman Dargy. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, motion carries. Minutes of August 22nd, special meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Dargy,
Second.
second by Selectman Duziak. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
I wasn't there, so.
And one abstention. So 401. Thank you. We do have some notices this evening. There's a public input session for the Milford Dog Park, the Sauhegan Street location. That will be on Thursday, September 12th at 6 o'clock in the Town Hall Banquet Room. The next Board of Selectmen meeting will be Monday, September 23rd at 5:30 here in the boardroom. The New Hampshire Department of Transportation review of the State of New Hampshire 10-year plan public hearing is Thursday, September 26th at 6 o'clock in the Town Hall Banquet Room. This is where the Department of Transportation looks at the road work, the state road work that will be done over the next 10 years. I haven't got a copy of that.
I've not received one.
Yeah.
I think they handed out at the meeting.
Okay, so if you're interested in that, That's Thursday, September 26th at 6 o'clock in the banquet room. The annual fall hydrant flushing program will begin on September 30th in East Milford, continue through North Milford, and end in West Milford on or about October 25th. If you have any questions, please call 249-0667. And your patience while the Water Utilities Department maintains your water system is greatly appreciated. Note that water discoloration may be noticeable. With that, is there any other thing to be brought forward in public session?
Do you know when we're paving Union Street? Or a ballpark meeting, I've had so many people ask me, and
Water Utilities is still working over there.
Okay.
They've got some work to do, so I don't have a schedule yet.
Okay.
I'm meeting with Rick later this week to talk about the balance of the paving and the line striping. which
that was
we're-
my follow-up question that I've been asked.
Yeah, it's been held up for all of this. We may have to do it in two steps this year.
Great.
Anything else? Seeing none, look for a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32A personnel and 91A32C reputations.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion by Selectman Duziak, seconded by Selectman Putnam. Selectman Duziak.
Aye.
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 And aye. And we will be in non-public. Thank you for joining us this evening.